Okay, so we are live. My name is Andres Tavia. I'm the head of marketing at Project A, and today I'm going to be your host. And for the next session, Dr. Markus Wuebben is with us. He's the co-founder and managing director of CrossEngage, and he's going to explain us what is the marketing flywheel. At the end, we will have a few minutes for Q&A, so please use the chat in the right to write all your questions. I will try to moderate. And right after the Q&A, we will have the opportunity, or you will have the opportunity to still talk to Markus in a different chat that will be done through Wonder. I will send a link. You just have to click in there, and you will have the opportunity to talk directly to Markus. So without further ado, I pass the mic to Markus.
Wonderful. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just quickly share my screen. Let me do this, share screen, and we should be fine. So first question, do you see my screen? Most important question in these times. So first lecture after the lunch break. Hopefully I'm not going to bore you. Who is me? I'm Markus, one of the co-founders of CrossEngage. And I would love to talk about the marketing flywheel today. As you see on the right, the flywheel has been creating a lot of buzz over the last months. And I was actually asking myself, what is behind this buzzword? Is it just a buzzword? Is it a concept? What's behind it? How to measure it? And how it might spin your organization? So let's get started. Well, actually, the flywheel is not a new idea. It's actually an idea that's been around for quite a while. And guess who created it? Well, you might already know it. It's Jeff Bezos in 2001 as a growth model for Amazon. He actually wrote it on a napkin in a bar with his team to understand how they can basically start building a business that grows by itself. That's the idea of this flywheel. And it was in 2001. And the idea of flywheel actually comes from engineering, and it basically makes sure it's this big round thing there, Schwungrad in Deutsch, in German. And the idea is that if you have cylinders, you want to distribute the energy evenly, right? And make this flywheel spin so we don't have like a bumpy ride that we'd have if you just had the energy from the cylinders right away. That's the idea of the flywheel, or the basis of the flywheel. And the concepts of engineering, that is the size of the flywheel, the force and the friction, they all apply to the marketing flywheel as well. And what actually sparked a lot of interest was in late 2018 when Brian Halligan, CEO of the infamous HubSpot, so inbound marketing, was introducing the new concept of the marketing flywheel. And that's super amazing from my point of view, because he is actually the master of the funnel. And now he says the funnel is dead and the marketing flywheel should live. Now, what's behind this, and why did he actually come up with this? And one thing you actually see in the animation quite nicely is if you apply force, at one point the flywheel spinning and keeps the energy. And that's the idea basically behind this flywheel thing, right? If you don't have any friction. But what was the king of inbound marketing talk about the flywheel instead of the funnel? I think this thing that he realized is that this is your marketing budget if you don't use a flywheel. Basically, you're kind of throwing money into advertising and you get some buzz, you get orders, you get new clients, but that's about it. You don't really use the energy that you're putting into acquisition marketing in a way that it gets prolonged, and you can use it for more than one just purchase. What we currently do is we repurchase customers over and over and over. And that's a problem. It's so imminent that Gary, and you might all know this fella, he's sometimes a bit extreme, but what he basically says is that 98% of the direct-to-consumer brands are already out of business. And the reason for this is that these brands, they can't acquire customers at the right value for a long time. They're just running out of money. That's what's going to happen to most of the D2C brands. That's what's going to happen to a lot of the companies if we only reacquire customers over and over and over again. That's what he's saying. That's why the flywheel is basically put into focus. That's the entire basis of it. So people, if you're only using acquisition marketing and reacquire your customers that you already know, that's what's going to happen. And the reason for this is that the funnel actually has a couple of issues. And the funnel, and we know this from the last 10 years, we're pouring money into acquisition marketing and trying to get customers, but the game is getting harder. Well, first of all, content marketing is becoming more difficult. The thing that HubSpot was pushing also, right? If you look at the big platforms, their algorithms are favoring content that's right on the platforms. If you have Facebook and you click an external link, you're not even leaving the application, right? You're still in the Facebook world. And on the other hand side, if you look at Google, all these direct answers you're now getting directly on Google when you search for something. So content is consumed on Google directly. These answers, how do I build a house? And you will get answers. How do I cook fish? You'll get answers right on Google. They don't get you onto the site anymore. Customer acquisition cost is the second thing, is rising and big time. Content marketing, actually, that cost is rising at a much higher rate than even paid acquisition marketing and performance marketing. That's an issue. It's becoming very, very expensive. Numbers from AdStage tell you that on a 3% conversion rate in Instagram, 3%, that's a lot. You're still paying around $25 for purchase. Now, on an average basket of $67, around $67, you basically 1/3 is already going to Instagram, and that's why we see these huge stock prices, right? So very expensive. And the third thing is GDPR, the send of the third-party cookie, third-party data, consent management. It's all making ad tech much harder, much less precise, and still very expensive. That's the problem. Now what? Well, if anyone has ever seen a talk by me, I will not get bored and I will not stop saying that we should be creating customer retention. A 5% increase in customer retention will lead to a 25 to 95% increase in profitability. These numbers, they're there. They're known. We know that. They're empirically proven. And the same applies to, the fact that keeping a customer is 5 times less expensive than acquiring a new customer. You can cross-sell better. You can upsell better. And at the same time, wonderfully satisfied customers, what they also do is they talk about you as a brand. And people believe friends and family a lot more than ads. Word of mouth creates like double the sales than paid ads if you use it correctly and if you kind of, balance the effort that you're putting into that. 92% believe brand recommendations from friends. So if you take focus on your customers instead of just kind of trying to get them in there, into the funnel and kind of make a sale, you will get advertisements for free. And that's one of the core ideas of the marketing flywheel. So the entire idea of the marketing flywheel is to not treat your customers as an afterthought. Everything you do should be focused on creating a great customer experience. And that will lead to your customers writing positive reviews, lowering your acquisition cost because there's natural acquisition. They will stay with your company, with your brand. They'll repurchase and they'll talk about you to their friends and so forth. So you get marketing advertising for free. But the thing is, you need to stay in the consideration set of your customers. Now, what is this consideration set thing? Well, consumers, they're bombarded with ads. So let's assume I want to buy a winter hat. So I'm going online and I have a couple of brands in my mind and then I'm searching and then I got bombarded from all kinds of sites, right? With ads. Buy this hat, buy that hat. And Project A gave this very nice hat for me talking here. So thanks to Project A. So Project A is now in the fashion business and they kind of get me to buy this hat with a lot of ads. Next time, I bet like Project A's fashion brand should rather be in my consideration set, in the brands that I have in my mind when thinking about winter hats. If not, I have to reacquire all over and play the ad game. So stay in the consideration set of consumers. That will lower your acquisition cost because you're just like, hey, this was great purchasing from Project A. They have great fashion. I'll have this in my mind. and it will defend off all the external ad attack that your consumers are experiencing. That's what this is all about, right? Now, how do you stay in the consideration set? Well, you can do brand marketing. We know Check24, heavy rotation, TV ads, and, with these, how do they call it, ad commercial. They actually do it this way, in a planned way, just like this, dubbed kind of commercial. They do this on purpose. The thing is, it's quite expensive. These numbers that I got are from Horizon. They say like 170 million went into marketing at a 500 million revenue. That's 33%. Amazon spent 3%. The other option you have is you create a marketing flywheel. And what keeps the marketing flywheel? Customers are at the center. And what keeps this marketing flywheel spinning is either the size. The bigger you have it, the more evenly it distributes the energy. The more I pull it, the faster it spins, and the less friction I have, the less it slows down over time. These are basically the two things. Now, what we usually see in the literature and the news articles is this kind of flywheel. That is the flywheel in terms of the size. We kind of increase the number of touch points. And there are various great examples, like Sixt, right? They create this mobility app where you can share a ride, where you can rent a ride, and so forth, right? So everything about mobility. And actually, one of our colleagues at CrossEngage is using this app quite extensively. And he said they did it in a very smart way, not asking for too much information in the first place, but then kind of, getting me back into this universe of Sixt, whether he rents a car, wants just a ride, and so forth. Same with Zalon from Zalando. It's another touch point for Zalando to sell their fashion. I used it. So what they recommended was Zalando products. And AWS and Amazon and Prime, well, I think I'm in contact with Amazon every day. So this keeps me in, that keeps me in the consideration set. And that's basically the size of the wheel. The other thing is the force and friction. It basically means that you should get a frictionless customer experience. Think about Uber versus the old school taxi business, right? Frictionless, easy acquisition, conducting of the ride, and even post experience is great. Can pay and then I get this receipt right into my inbox and so forth. So great concept. And that's what this flywheel is about. Either more touch points, and we can do, as marketers, we can't do much about it, or we can be as frictionless as possible to get a great customer experience. That will take us to the consideration set of clients, and that will lower our acquisition cost. We'll get free word of mouth. We'll get repurchase behavior. Now, nothing is a concept if you can't measure that. So I thought about how can you measure the flywheel? And one of the things is word of mouth. It's quite simple. We all know this, right? It's NPS. So measure your NPS for all your clients. It's one thing, right? And I don't want to talk too much about this. I think everybody knows that. The second thing is referrals. We can also measure referrals, right? So you can measure which of your customers are actually sharing a referral. It's a bit harder to measure who receives the referral and gets that, because referrals are very often by private messengers, on ways that you can't really measure. But in the third option, you can measure the conversion rates by friends of the one that shared. And that's actually two numbers that you need to measure in order to measure the performance of your flywheel, of your customer experience. But it's quite simple to do so. And the other thing is actually measuring retention. And that's a little bit harder. And the reason for this is that customer lifetime value is a forward-looking metric. It includes predictions, and the future is so hard to predict. Share wallet. How much of my, let's say, spending wallet for fashion do I spend at Zalando? 20%, 5%, great concept, hard to measure. Third thing, first to second order rates. Quite okay, but fall a bit short. And the reason is that you are actually devaluing the customers that have high value. That's like long-term customers who make their 6th, 7th, 8th purchase. Those people you are actually neglecting in these KPIs. So what we are proposing is actually something on the end-to-end order rate, where it's say like if, this basically means is that every customer who made a first purchase also made a second purchase. all customers who did a second purchase made a third purchase, and so forth. And what you can actually do is to measure the area under the curve as your way to measure repurchase loyalty. And the advantage over the average purchase rate is that the customers who have more purchases are not undervalued, which usually they are in an average. Now, you can also split between early and late customers, and the reason for this is that early customers are different to late customers, right? These are actually two real-life examples. What we look at CrossEngage, and we see this, the right company has a much better late customer loyalty. He gets 70% of all potential repurchases. So this is really great. They're doing a very good personalized experience and are quite good on the acquisition side versus the left company who really sucks on retention. But even the early versus like on these two companies, they're not doing so different, but on the late, you actually see how they suck on creating retention. Now, why do so? Because, personalizing means, a customer has to have trust. We need to have the data. So we can personalize from the very start. We can do so when we got the trust and the data to do so. And in the beginning, we need to do acquisition marketing. So I'm saying don't only forget acquisition marketing, but use it wisely on the ones that have not done so many purchases. But later on, do a personalized experience, right? So in the very beginning, we have very opportunistic customers. They want deals. They're kind of, what is this brand doing? They don't have any trust. So focus on the general customer experience. Get them in with performance marketing. Once they kind of pass through a threshold, you need to do a personalized brand experience. And that also explains the split, why we have this personalization paradox, where people are saying we want personalization, but we're also afraid. Well, afraid of the data breach, right? And data being abused. And that actually means you should personalize on later stage customers because they expect that, and that's where you have the data. And we at CrossEngage, we believe that it's actually a threefold thing, and that is the marketing flywheel is spun by the customer data flywheel. And Valentin from Project A gave a really great talk about the opt-in rates and how to measure this as part of the customer data flywheel. Because in the very beginning, you don't get all the data from your customers. You only get little, and you need to gain the trust and the value to get more of it. And it's kind of the customer data flywheel is the same as the marketing flywheel. You need to make it spin. And in order to make the customer data flywheel spin, you need to collect, detect, understand, and act upon the changes and the behavior that your customers do. That's what we believe in at CrossEngage, and that's what we do with our customer operating system, consisting out of the CDP and a customer data platform and a customer prediction platform. Who wants to know more about this? Contact me, please. So, as a conclusion, first of all, rethink acquisition. Don't only reacquire. Make sure you are actually put a focus on customer experience to create retention. Stick to people's minds by great customer experience. That will give you a free advertisement. Track the spin, measure your flywheel so you know if your deeds were actually good or not. Own the data, own your own customer relationships. Otherwise, we'll not be able to control your brand experience, to understand how your customers act, what they want, what they don't like, and retain the right way. That's actually more for another talk on how to keep the customer data flywheel spinning, and then make sure you engage with the customers because that's what they all want once they gain trust. So with these words, thanks a lot for this short but hopefully interesting talk. I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.